Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
Fall far short of having equal participation in the electoral process, particularly in the South. Efforts continue to be made to deny blacks access to the polls, even where blacks constitute the majority of the voters. It has been a long uphill struggle to keep alive the vital legislation that protects the most fundamental right to vote. A person who has exhibited so much hostility to the enforcement of those laws.
The senator is reminded that it is a violation of Rule 19 of the standing rules of the Senate to impute to another senator or senators any conduct or motive unworthy or becoming a senator.
Mr. President, I don't think I quite understand. I'm reading a letter from Coretta Scott King to the Judiciary Committee from 1986 that was admitted into the record. I'm simply reading what she wrote about what the nomination of Jeff Sessions to be a federal court judge meant and what it would mean in history for her.
This is a reminder, not pertinent necessarily to what you just shared. However, you stated that a sitting senator is a disgrace to the Department of Justice.
I think that may have been Senator Kent.
And this...
It is through. Although I would be glad to repeat it in my own words.
Okay, watch this, because this is the part you didn't see, I think. Okay, this is the C-SPAN part. I told you C-SPAN was going to be your best friend. You didn't believe me. It's actually C-SPAN too. All right. So watch this, because the presiding officer does not know what he's doing. And so there is a person standing in front of him who I suspect is a staffer for Mitch McConnell, who is putting words into his mouth to help him debate Senator Warren, because he does not know what he's talking about.
The rule applies to imputing conduct or motive through any form or voice to a sitting form of words, includes quotes, articles, or other materials.
So quoting Senator Kennedy, calling then nominee Sessions a disgrace is a violation of Senate rules. It was certainly not in 1986.
In the opinion of the chair, it is.
So let me understand then.
And the senator is warned.
So can I ask a question in the opinion of the chair? I want to understand what this rule means.
The senator will state her inquiry.
So is it the contention of the chair that under the rules of the Senate, I am not allowed to accurately describe public views of Senator Sessions, public positions of Senator Sessions, quote, public statements of Senator Sessions?
The chair has not made a ruling with respect to the senator's comments.
The chair has not made a ruling with respect to the senator's comments.
The senator is following process and tradition.
The senator is following process and tradition.
By reminding the senator from Massachusetts.
By reminding the senator from Massachusetts of the rule.
Oh, I'm asking for what this rule means in this context.
You have staffers running the Senate.
With Coretta Scott King's letter.
The senator may continue.
Thank you. In 2013, Senator Sessions voted against reauthorizing the Violence Against Women Act, a bill that expanded the protections and services provided to victims of sexual assault and domestic violence.
Okay, just so you're following this, okay, she has completed, and this is a part that you need to know, she has completed reading Coretta Scott King's letter. I don't know why I can't talk today. Coretta Scott King's letter was 10 pages long. It's a very long letter. I can play for you Elizabeth Warren reading the whole letter. Also, I can play for you Elizabeth Warren reading Senator Kennedy's testimony during the confirmation hearing of Jeff Sessions prior to him becoming Senator Sessions, when he was Attorney General of Alabama and he was going for a federal court position. Senator Kennedy, who she quoted there, and it was quoted back to her that she impugned him. It was Senator Kennedy's words that were obviously taken down into the congressional record that she was reading during the previous confirmation hearing of now Senator Sessions. Okay. She is objected to by some staffer who puts words into the mouth of the presiding officer in the Senate last night. He doesn't know what to do. She's telling him what to do, the little staffer is. You can hear her telling him, putting words in his mouth. He has no idea what the rules of the Senate are. None, not a clue. And then you can hear her object and say, can I continue? And he lets her continue. So she finishes reading Coretta Scott King's letter, which is long. It's 10 pages. It took her 18 minutes to read it. I know this because I edited it. Okay? 18 minutes it took. And so now she's done with the letter, and she's now discussing Senator Sessions' current voting record on various things, like celebrating the end of the gutting of the Voting Rights Act. Section 5, which we all now know was gutted. The Supreme Court said through Scalia, that there's no racism in America anymore. We don't need protections under Section 5, which was the pre-clearance section, which said that if you were going to move a polling place from the city to the hinterlands, or you were going to only have one polling place open, or you were going to, remove several, of the machines that people customarily, find when they go to their polling, and you were going to take it down to just one machine, or you were going to change ID requirements, or you were going to, give a literacy test, whatever, that these particular places that were named in Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act, because they had a record of discriminatory behavior against minority voters, blacks, Latinos, oh yes, and women, that they had to pre-clear those changes with the federal government. That's what was struck down. Jeff Sessions, as a senator, celebrated that and said the South Shore is happy about this. Okay, and now she's, also adding that he voted against the Violence Against Women Act, and she's bringing up his current record as a senator, which is 30 years after the Coretta Scott King letter, 30 years after the Kennedy testimony that Senator Kennedy gave at the confirmation hearing of then Attorney General of Alabama, Jeff Sessions. Okay, so we're now in modern times. We're now in current times.
There's a piece from the Bedford Minuteman that really tells the story of how sexual violence impacts Massachusetts. And this is what it said. They are mothers, daughters, sisters, fathers, sons, and brothers.
Mr. President.
They are...
Mr. President.
The Majority Leader.
The senators impugn the motives and conduct of our colleague from Alabama as warned by the chair.
Now, do you see Orrin Hatch picking his nose back there? Do you see that? Can you see that? That's Orrin Hatch picking his nose. Now, what's really interesting about this particular screenshot is that Orrin Hatch today was asked whether or not he had ever seen Rule 19 invoked in this manner. And, Orrin's been there almost as long as the Senate's been there. Okay? He's been there 38 years. And the majority, when Elizabeth Warren took to the Senate floor last night, you realized that the chamber was empty. Okay? It was Elizabeth Warren. It was the presiding officer and a couple staffers. That's who was in the chamber. It was empty. Okay? It was one of those great C-SPAN moments meant just for me. The kind I like, where I have my senators all to myself. And she's talking just to me. Right? Because there's nobody there to hear it. Okay, make a long story short, Orrin Hatch says today, I've never seen this rule invoked before. But there he is, sitting right there behind, now who shows up, Mitch McConnell, who probably, rolled out of bed, put his suit on, and drove up to Capitol Hill to intervene because, I'm telling you, she was up there for almost an hour. Her floor speech lasted 50 minutes. I know this because I watched it, and I know this because I edited it. 50 minutes she was there. This gave him time to roll out of bed. And the thing he's objecting to happened like a half hour earlier because she did finish reading Coretta Scott King's letter. Oh, yes, she did.
Senator Warren, quote, said Senator Sessions has used the awesome power of his office to chill the free exercise of the vote by black citizens. I call the senator to order under the provisions of Rule 19.
Mr. President.
Senator from Massachusetts.
Look,
Mr.
there's a
President,
staffer.
I am surprised that the
She actually had to tell him to say the senator from Massachusetts. She actually had to tell him to say that. That is amazing. All right.
Black citizens. I call the senator to order under the provisions of Rule 19.
Mr. President.
Watch this.
Senator from Massachusetts.
Mr. President, I am surprised that the words of Coretta Scott King are not suitable for debate in the United States Senate. I ask leave of the Senate to continue my remarks.
Is there objection?
Object.
I appeal the ruling.
Objection is heard.
The Senate will take her seat.
Mr. President. Oh my God. I appeal the ruling of the chair.
It's a dog and pony
suggest the
show.
absence of a quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Alexander. Let me tell you something. That just blew my mind. No one knows what they're doing in the Senate. Mitch McConnell has to roll out of bed and go to Capitol Hill. A staffer has to put the words in the mouth of the presiding officer, who is, has no clue what he's doing. No clue. She actually had to say, the senator from Massachusetts. The senator from Massachusetts. Well, I would like to know. I would like to know if I can continue. Is there an objection? Is there an objection? McConnell, object. The senator will take her seat. The senator will take her seat. What the? Who's running this show? The staff is running the freaking Senate. And apparently, okay, here's the really creepy part. If you're confirming a sitting senator to a cabinet position, according to Mitch McConnell, you can't say anything negative about his voting record in the Senate. You can't say anything negative about why he was denied a federal judgeship prior to his becoming a U.S. senator, which was just another way for him to get into government. I mean, he wanted into government so freaking bad that he was Attorney General of Alabama. Then he was denied a seat on the federal court. Then he went and ran as a senator from Alabama, which he's been all this time. And now you can't say why he was rejected prior to this. And you can't talk about his current record when it comes to celebrating the gutting of the Voting Rights Act. You can't talk about his record as somebody who voted against the Violence Against Women Act. You can't talk about his Senate record violating, that said that he voted against equal rights for LGBT people or equal marriage. He wasn't for. You can't say, because it would impugn him. It would his own record impugns him. Wow. Who ever heard of such a thing? Let me just play you 5 minutes before we go to the break, okay? Because this is the previous portion. She said she wanted to read she said she was looking into Senator Sessions' record with an eye toward whether or not she could vote for him for Attorney General of the United States of America. And in the record, in the congressional record, which is why there is a congressional record, it's to preserve history so that it may be revisited, because those who, don't know history are doomed to repeat it by putting Sessions in some sort of a federal, legal role. So anyway, so she goes back into the congressional record, doing her due diligence to cast her vote, yay or nay. Can't ask for more, right? So she goes into the record, and guess what she finds? She finds the hearing that was held in 1986, which denied Jeff Sessions a seat on the federal court by virtue of Republicans and Democrats voting together to bar him from that particular position. And she comes up with the record, and Senator Kennedy obviously said why he was voting no. And she reads what he said verbatim into the congressional record as there's an open Senate hearing. So she reads this, and this is this impugns, I gotta say, this impugns.
Now, I would like to read two statements that really stood out to me as I was reviewing Senator Sessions' record on civil rights. One is the powerful speech that the late senator from Massachusetts, Ted Kennedy, gave in 1986.
Now remember, she's the senator
And the
from
other
Massachusetts.
is a very moving letter from Coretta Scott King, a letter that she wrote to the Judiciary Committee that same year. So I want to start with what Senator Kennedy said.
Okay.
He said, "The confirmation of nominees for lifetime appointments to the federal judiciary is one of the most important responsibilities of the Senate, mandated by the U.S. Constitution. And the examination by the Senate of a nominee's fitness to serve as a federal judge is the last opportunity to determine whether the candidate possesses the education, experience, skills, integrity, and most importantly, the commitment to equal justice under law, which are essential attributes of a federal judge. Once confirmed, a federal judge literally has life and death authority over citizens that appear before him, with limited review of his decisions. Our federal judiciary is the guardian of the rights and liberties guaranteed to all of us by the U.S. Constitution, and the decisions of federal judges are constantly shaping and reshaping those rights and liberties. This committee has a duty to our citizens to carefully examine the qualifications of nominees for the federal bench and to give our approval only to those who have demonstrated a personal commitment to the principle of equality for all Americans and a sensitivity to the long history of inequality, which we are still struggling to overcome. Mr. Sessions, as the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Alabama, comes to this committee with a record which, regrettably, includes presiding over the now infamous so-called Perry County voting fraud prosecutions.
The Marion Three.
In the Perry County case, the government indicted 3 well-known and highly respected black civil rights activists on charges of voter fraud and assisting elderly black voters to vote by absentee ballot. But for the efforts of the defendants 20 years ago, these black citizens would not have been allowed to vote. All 3 of the defendants were acquitted on all charges in the indictments, and some of the elderly blacks have responded to their experiences during the prosecution, vowing never to vote again.
Wow.
Mr. Sessions' role in that case alone should bar him from serving on the federal bench.
Wow.
But there is more. Much more.
There's more.
We just received a sworn statement from a Justice Department attorney I know, which will be the subject of a good deal of questioning during the course of this hearing, who has worked on civil rights cases with Mr. Sessions over the period Sessions has been U.S. Attorney. Mr. Hebert has stated to the committee investigators that Mr. Sessions, on more than one occasion, has characterized the NAACP and the ACLU as un-American, communist-inspired organizations. Mr. Hebert reports that Mr. Sessions said these organizations did more harm than good when they were trying to force civil rights down the throats of people who were trying to put problems behind them. Mr. Hebert also stated that Mr. Sessions suggested that a prominent white civil rights lawyer who litigated voting rights cases was a disgrace to his race for doing it. Mr. Sessions is a throwback to a shameful era, which I know both black and white Americans thought was in our past. It is inconceivable to me that a person of this attitude is qualified to be a U.S. attorney, let alone a U.S. federal judge. He is, I believe, a disgrace to the Justice Department, and he should withdraw his nomination and resign his position. Those were the words of Senator Ted Kennedy. And I will stand with Senator Kennedy, and like he did, I will cast my vote against the nomination
of Senator Jeff Sessions. Okay, so there you have it. All she was doing was quoting Senator Kennedy's congressional record. That is what Senator Kennedy said at Jeff Sessions' confirmation hearing for a federal judgeship in 1986. Similarly, Coretta Scott King, who was unable to appear at that confirmation hearing, sent a letter that was admitted into the congressional record by none other than Strom Thurmond, who was then the chairman of the Judiciary Committee. And the letter from Coretta Scott King that she then proceeds to read is read in its entirety. And obviously, Mitch McConnell, okay, so like I said, that took 5 minutes. And then the Coretta Scott King letter took 18. So that gives Mitch McConnell 23 minutes to roll out of bed and roll up to Capitol Hill to sit there and say, you're impugning him. And you go, but these are Kennedy's words. And this is Coretta Scott King's letter that was admitted into the congressional record by Strom Thurmond, for God's sake. I don't care. Okay, little staffer, instruct the presiding officer what he's to say to dismiss the woman from Massachusetts. Okay, there's a coup going on in this country, and it's not just me who thinks so. It's not just me. It is now starting to be written in mainstream press. It is now starting to become a word. A word, you know, the word lie. They had to fight really hard to say the word lie on the CNN. Jake Tapper is using the word lie, as are many others. And now the word coup is starting to appear in the press. And they're saying, don't envision these soft, these militarized juntas. No. This is something different. This is a soft coup. And we'll show you how it's happening.
All things Randi at RandyRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, The Randi Rhodes Show.
Go to RandyRhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.